Are you guys ready to do a little work? Okay. We'll also have some fun. You should have a manual that came in your bag that looks like this thing. You may want to find it because, hey, and somebody that, well, okay. Because you can sort of follow along. And we got stuff. I don't know how you all got tickets in the box, but some of you got tickets in the box. And we have two footballs made out to a champion info marketer, Steelers balls, by the way, whoever was just complaining about the Steelers. Well, if you win, you don't have to take it, you know. I mean, they are one of the only 4 cities that have an NFL team, so you might want to reconsider. So this is made out to a champion info marketer. It's signed by Rocky Blyer, 4-time Super Bowl winner. So we got 2 of those we're going to give away tonight. We got some little footballs. There you go. We got a DNA game changer thing, and we got my jersey. So what? What do you want? What do you want? At San Diego Chargers?
Close enough.
Huh? Yeah, okay. Well, it's got to be one of them teams you can't catch. So it's okay. So what we're going to do tonight and tomorrow night is we're really going to talk about, well, we're going to start with sort of a quick historical perspective and sort of state of the union of the information marketing business. And then we're going to go through the best major items, game-changing items I know. What's up there? Oh. And talk about them both as they have been and as they apply now. So you have a page that looks like this. Somebody who knows how to use this thing, if there's a loose AV person around, I could use this like zoomed in a little, but I don't want to touch it. But if there's nobody around and you don't want to come up, that's okay too, we'll suffer. So anyway, you should have a page that looks like this about how the game has changed. So in the 35 some odd years that I've been at this, the game has changed a whole. Are you coming up to full with this? Ah, good man. Good man. You've been to the same hairstylist as Dwight. The other direction. Less is more. That's good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. 2 people, same hairdo. Amazing. I thought they only sold them things on the beach in Nassau or something with the beach. You too, actually, Tanya. There's 3 of you. So, this business used to be really about product. And so when I started, the focus was all on product. And that worked because there were a whole lot of people who wanted product. If you get the information marketing letter, you'll see in this month's issue an old artifact, an original spaced repetition learning sales presentation, which is how we used to sell product. Now you got to be a certain age to remember this, but we used to actually talk about how the memory works, which is not well, and it takes 7 to 21 repetitions to get anything embedded in the subconscious. And the proof of that is if you move into a new home and you lived in your old home for a long time, for 21 nights you'll be reaching for the light switches where they used to be before you automatically reach for the light switches where they are. If you were a GM guy and you got a Ford, or you were a Ford person and you got a GM, you're trying to turn the wipers and stuff on the way they used to be in the car you had for about a month. So we said that means you need to listen to every now CD, we would have said tape in this product 21 times in a row for you to get it and be able to use it. So if there's 10 in there, that means you got 210 listenings ahead of you. Isn't that great? And everybody used to think that was great. If you do that now, I promise you, you are not going to sell a lot of product. Because really, if it's not on a thumb drive and it doesn't work automatically, I'm not sure I want it. Okay? So we used to sell product, and this business used to be about product. Connected to that, the money used to be down at the bottom of the pyramid. So information marketing businesses made a large part of their profits from the large numbers of customers who came and went and bought product, and mostly didn't do anything with it, but they bought product after product after product after product. So all the guys I came up with, Zig, Brian Tracy, Earl Nightingale, the Nightingale Conan Corporation, we had tons and tons and tons of customers who bought a product, consumed a product, wanted the next product. And for the most part, they were using the product in their cars. We talked about the classroom in the car. Now, all that is ancient history. Okay? Now, some people still fall into it. They still think we're in the product business, and we still think the money's at all these customers at the bottom of the pyramid. What's happened now is that the bottom of the pyramid, and by the way, your business has a pyramid, every business has a pyramid. We're going to talk about the unchanging pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid now is merely a necessary evil, usually operated at a loss. We call that an investment. In order to process, sift, and sort to find the relatively small number of genuinely ambitious people who wish to be serious students who then can have value to us. Now, I just said something very, very important. So if you get nothing else out of tonight and tomorrow night, you want to make a note of this if you are taking notes. Here it is. In whatever population it is that you are marketing to, there are surprisingly few genuinely ambitious people. You ought to write it down verbatim. It's that good. We tend to think everybody's like we are. So you think your customers, your prospects, your market thinks about things kind of like you do. And you're very ambitious. You're here, so you're very ambitious. However, the overwhelming majority of people are not. Now, they speak ambition, so if you ask them, they will say things that would make you think they are ambitious. They do that because they know they're supposed to be. Okay? If you put them in a focus group and do research with them, you will come away, they said the right things to indicate that they are ambitious. But their behavior tells the real story. Now, many of them think they're ambitious. So I have a relative. I won't identify the relative. I, like most of you, have a family, and I am the only one in it who is sincerely ambitious, responsible, and doing well. I'm sure that describes many of you. You suspect that you might have a different father. So I have a relative who speaks entrepreneurial ambition. Often. Start a business, build a business, grow a business, want to be in business for myself. If you can find in their house 4 books that have anything whatsoever to do with starting a business, being in a business, growing a business, I'll give you Dave's check for $10,000. Because you can't find him. If you can catch this person ever in their entire life going to a seminar about how to start a business, be in a business, grow a business, succeed in a business, I'll give you Dave's $10,000 check. You won't catch him. Never happen. But he will speak to you as if he was serious about being an entrepreneur. This is like someone talking to you about their sincere desire to lose weight while they are eating a box of donuts. Okay? They are full of shit, right? That's what they are. Sherry said we were simulcasting or live casting, whatever the hell we're doing, to 4,000 people somewhere else, and she said I should say something to the camera. There we go. They're full of shit. This is what happens when you know they really can't fire you. Not a good position to let anybody on your team get into, by the way. So here's the truth. So you pick any field, right? Pick restaurant owners. So I have good friends who own a restaurant, right? All right? There's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of restaurant owners. Here's the limit of the ambition of most of them. And by the way, I'm not even being critical about this. I'm just telling you the way it is. They got into the restaurant business because they didn't want to be in their job, A, and because they wanted to be Ted Danson in Cheers. Okay? They want to come to their place. They want to hang out. Maybe they like to cook, or they want to tend bar. They want to host a party. Okay? And they want to make a living. They want the bills of the restaurant to be paid, and they want their bills at home to be paid. That's it. Right? And truth is, if you try and teach them other things, you sort of annoy them. Right? Our dog, who we call the $1 Million Dog, she has several ambitions. None of them involve learning a trick. Okay? So if you try to teach her a trick, all you wind up with is a grumpy, pissed off dog. She don't want to learn a trick. That is not on her ambition list. Okay? She would like to be let loose to chase the squirrel. That's on her ambition list, but she does not want to learn a trick. So in every business category, whatever market you sell to, business side, or if you sell personal growth stuff, same thing is true. The weight loss example is a perfect example. The overwhelming majority of the people at the bottom of the pyramids have very, very limited ambition, so limited they are of virtually no value to you. Now, in the old days, we could monetize them profitably. But today, the cost of getting them is so great, and their quality is so diminished, a lot worse than they used to be, you can't monetize them. So the new state of the union in our business is you've got to understand whatever market you're in, there's a tiny little percentage of it that represents real value to you. Okay? And furthermore, the money in our businesses is all pushed up to the top of the pyramid. So a decade ago, people did seminars routinely, for example, to make a lot of money from doing the seminar. If you listen to some information marketing product or you read some information marketing product that was put together a decade ago, we talked about those in terms of being big paydays. Okay? Most niche info marketers now do seminars only to sell their coaching. The seminar is not the big payday. The sale of the coaching is the big payday, which means they're pushing the money to the top of the pyramid. Now, once you understand this, you can start to build a business model for you that makes sense. So what has always been true is now even truer. Okay? The money is in helping sincerely ambitious and typically already successful people do even better, not raising the dead. And the money is moved further and further back or higher and higher up your pyramid. Therefore, you got to have certain things in place like an ascension process. So we're going to talk about all that tonight. I gave you some historical perspective we're not going to spend much time on. You can look at it at your own pace, but I find that a lot of people, and for some reason it happens more in info marketing than it does in other fields. So like most chiropractors, for example, and I know we have some in the room, one just came and talked to me. Most chiropractors, for example, have a sense of the history of their profession. Okay? They at least go back 20 or 30 years. Even if they've only been a chiropractor for 3 or 4 or 5 years, they have a sense of the history of the profession. They know who B.J. Palmer was. They know about the origins of chiropractic. The same thing's true in most businesses. For some reason, it's not true in info marketing. For some reason, a lot of people get in info marketing and pay no attention to anything that happened before last Thursday. And I'm going to tell you that's a big mistake. Right? I'm going to tell you that being a student of the history of your profession, and if you are going to be a professional info marketer, then that is your profession. Being a student of the history of your profession can yield very, very, very big benefits. When you have deeper understanding of where we came from and how we got to be here, you can do smarter things now that you are here. So this business goes back a long way. The article I gave you takes it back into the 1800s. Okay? This business goes back a long way. Get rich in real estate. How many in here are sort of in the get rich in real estate, teaching people how to make money with real estate? You'll learn more if you look around, look at them, than if you look at me. There's a bunch of them. There used to, 2 years ago, there was a lot more. But I have ads, Harper's Weekly, which was at one time a national newspaper like USA Today is now. So we had a national newspaper long before USA Today. Most people don't know that. They think USA Today was the first national newspaper. It wasn't. Harper's Weekly was the first national newspaper. And it was published during the Civil War. And in the classifieds, in Harper's Weekly, during the Civil War, there were ads selling how to get rich in real estate stuff. During the Civil War. Now, there was no website to go to. People had to put money in an envelope, address it, send it in with a coupon, get sent something back. It was really true mail order, okay? But this is the lineage of a segment of this business. And if you don't know your history, you are at a profound disadvantage. For one thing, you invent stuff there's no reason to invent. And invention is time-consuming and problematic and difficult and often requires a lot of trial and error, a lot of which has already been done and may have been done 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago and done repetitively again and again and again and again. For another thing, you do dumb stuff that doesn't work, that's already been done 56 times. So anyway, I gave you some history. I just thought, you can look at it at your leisure. So I graduated from high school in 1973. This was the magazine, this is a 1974 cover, that really was the centerpiece of the success education / info marketing industry. It was published by a guy named W. Clement Stone. It was a little digest size like this, and it built businesses like Nightingale Conant and Ziggs and so forth. It was actually a marketplace for the success industry. It doesn't exist today. Continuity. This is an ad from the same era, from the same magazine, for a monthly series of 30-minute cassette tapes and a free trial offer. where have we seen that before? I just wanted to show you a couple other things before we move on, just for fun. So this was one of the lead generation ads for Success Motivation Institute, and it offered a free record. For those of you who don't know what that is, find somebody that looks real old and ask them. I always say the worst thing about those was the needle kept moving around when you drove down the street in the car. But see, to me, this isn't all that long ago, because this is from a 1974 magazine. When I graduated from high school, this industry was still sending out records as lead generation devices. All right? So today, DVDs, CDs, same difference. You'll find an old original Lead to Field ad in there. You'll find a real young-looking Zig Ziglar with his $45 album. So, on page 16, with historical perspective, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the constant factors. Before we talk about how we changed the game, I think it's important to understand the fundamentals of the game, the things that haven't changed since these ads, since before these ads, now, and aren't going to change. And think of everything that's happened. Just go back this far, since 1973 and 1974 to now, technologically. For example, we don't have to send out records. We don't have to have people clip out coupons and put dollar bills and $5 bills in it. They actually can call an 800 number and they can process a credit card. That is revolutionary. Right? So all that has changed, yet there are certain constants that haven't changed, and I want you to be aware of each one of them. So one is the unchanging money pyramid. So this goes back to the pyramids I showed you. So the first time money statistics were tracked by the federal government was in 1950-something. I forget the exact year. And keep in mind, this is the 50s. So they tracked males, not females, because females weren't really supposed to be working. So they tracked males. All right? And so they tracked males from age 20 to age 65, the 45-year working career, beginning then to draw Social Security at 65. Right? And what they found is that at the age of 65, after 45 years of working, 1% were classified as rich. Gee, just like today. Everybody's protesting about the 1%. Right? So 1% was rich, 4% was financially secure, 15% were financially okay, barely. Right? And then there was a number that were having to still work out of necessity, a number that was totally dependent on charity, family, and a number that was dead. Right? Those three numbers were in the bottom of the pyramid. The 20 were in the top of the pyramid. The top of the pyramid, the last time they did those stats were about 4 years ago. The top of the pyramid has not changed. It is still 1, 4, 15. Has not changed. Right? The bottom has just reshuffled. There's less dead, more broke. Right? Because they're living longer. Right? Big problem, by the way. That's a socioeconomic problem we got to solve. We got to get back to dying at 68. I mean, they're talking about moving the Social Security thing a few years. That's not the solution to our socioeconomic problems. Pushing that a few years out, that ain't going to solve anything. We got to get life expectancy back to about 68 and a half if we are going to balance these books. Nothing else will solve the problem. So I don't know exactly how you run on that, but well, actually I do. It's called Obamacare. No. So that pyramid hasn't changed. Right? Laptops haven't changed it. iPads haven't changed it. Smartphones haven't changed it. Desktop publishing didn't change it. Mobile phones didn't change it. Nothing's changed it. All right? You can't change it. It is human nature. And in any population, you'll find the same pyramid in present time. So if you gather up a whole bunch of anything, the ones you sell to, whatever they are, you're going to find 1% are kicking butt and taking names. I mean, you're going to find the same pyramid. Okay? It does not change, and nothing you or I are going to do is ever going to change it. People move around in there, you understand. Not a lot move from the bottom of the pyramid to the top of the pyramid, though. Not a lot move from the 80 to the 20. Some, not many. Not because they can't, just because they won't. All right? So from a business standpoint, here's the best business advice I got. Figure out who's in the top 20 and sell to them. Do not spend a lot of time, energy, and effort selling to the 80. There used to be money there, not money there anymore, and trying to move them up. Maybe. This is beyond my level of expertise. Maybe it gets you a seat further away from the furnace in the afterlife. But it ain't gonna do any, and I don't, theology's beyond my, but it is not going to do anything for you in the present life except frustrate you. That's all it's going to do, because they won't budge. They will not budge. A confirmed person of low real ambition ain't moving. You can double the amount of stuff you give them. You can lock them in a room for 8 days instead of 4 days. You can give them all sorts of done-for-them stuff. You can go to their house if you wish. It won't matter. So from a business standpoint, we want to work with, sell to, assist, be of service to the top 20. And whatever process you build for yourself has to sift it apart and get you to the top 20 as quickly as possible. All your resources, energy, time, to the top 20. Next. Two things go together. So the first, the importance of the guru factor. Okay? You can have successful information marketing businesses that are not personality, guru driven. It's possible. They're extremely rare. They're extremely difficult to create from scratch. Most of them began one way, and if you see them now as not person dependent, they were at the start. The exceptions are so rare, we could count them and have fingers left over. The reason for that is that the customer is not actually buying information, as I said this morning. Now, if they were, so here's a true information business that had no relationship to a person, to a guru, and was very successful. World Book Encyclopedia. The only thing being sold is a shelf full of information. Now, it's significant. It was a shelf full of information not being sold to an end user. It was being sold to a parent who was buying it for the kid to use. Trying to sell that to the parent to use would have been a failing proposition, by the way. But still, it is information completely divorced from personality, from person, from author, from guru. A dictionary is another information product in exactly the same category. World Book, of course, as you know, doesn't exist as it used to exist. It's a CD-ROM, and now the last I looked, and I haven't looked in a while, so I assume now it's a thumb drive, or Wikipedia has done it in entirely. An encyclopedia written by morons. It's Wikipedia. We're going to have a reference book with open architecture that anybody can change. There's a great idea. So if you think it's a good idea, when you get on the airplane to fly home, think about the fact that the pilot leaves his manuals and his GPS and shit in the cafeteria, and anybody's allowed to go in there and change it around any way they want to change it. So if they think it would be better if Honolulu was in Kansas, they just move it there, and the pilot works with that. And how many of you would like being on that plane? Well, that's Wikipedia. But anyway, so I have disdain for Wikipedia. So, if you want to play the odds, the overwhelming majority of info marketing businesses are driven by connection to a person or to people because we're not really selling information. Which links to the second point, is we sell story. So Halbert's old formula, which is a really nice formula because it's simple, had to be for Halbert to remember it. So, star, story, solution. Those three things are at the core of most great information marketing businesses. They solve something, there's a star, and he or she has a great story. Because really, story sells. Right? And when you leave a 3-day seminar like this, or 4 days or 5 days, depending on who you are and how long you've been here, 2 weeks later, what do people remember? They'll remember the stories. They'll remember some stories. They are not food, maybe, yeah. Here, it's a shitty answer, but I got to give away these balls. There you go. They'll remember the stories, but they won't pass a test on the information. What's persuasive? Story, kid wants to hear story. Bible's based on stories. The selling of religion is all story. Okay? So, by the way, try and find a religion that doesn't have a guru with a story. Find one. Okay? The most institutionalized one, if you want to call it a religion of the moment, is Scientology. But of course, it didn't start that way. It started all based around one guy, who incidentally is a very interesting guy. Great vacuum cleaner sales guy. Well, no, that's where he came from. Most religions, other than Christianity, were started by direct sales guys, in case you didn't know that. An itinerant carpenter was close for the day because we didn't have vacs. I mean, you couldn't be a vacuum cleaner salesman because they hadn't invented the damn thing yet, right? Okay, so story sells. That means you got to sell a story. So we just had this old gang of mine dinner. So one of the guys who was there is a guy I worked with years ago. He's information marketing then, information marketing now, to the tax accountant industry. His name is Chauncey Hutter. And so everybody at dinner was sort of talking about their turning points in their business. And I don't remember the conversation, and I don't remember when the conversation occurred, and I don't remember where the conversation occurred. But Chauncey said a big turning point for him because he was trying to sell his how-to information about how to build, grow, and run a successful tax practice to other tax practitioners in a very logical and rational way. Was that after I had asked him some questions and he had told me about his background and so forth, I turned to him and I said, you should be selling your story, not your stuff. And he had a great story. Right? They put H&R Block out of business in the town they were in. They drove them out of the town with their tail between their legs. And he turned a single crummy little tax office into a chain of 230 of them in 36 months. And so he had a great story. And his father thought he was an idiot. And now the father still probably thinks he's an idiot, but we changed that in the story. But so I said to him, you should be selling your story. And these businesses, you want to sell story. That has not changed. It will not change. Okay? I'll skip something, but I'm going to jump to this. This has always been a problem. It is a growing problem. The organizing of a poor herd, a diseased herd, a herd made up of the 80%. Right? It happens because people default to the easy, to the low-hanging fruit. There are people, and they are making money, and you can, in the short term, make money in ways that in the long term will destroy you. There are people making money with really, really, really bad but big lists. You can't even call them a herd. They're really just a list because they don't really have any relationship with them, but they got a list. Right? So I'm consulting with one of these people. I am not going to name him for obvious reasons, including the fact many of you would know him. So he has a list of 1.2 million people. This is what he is telling me. And we are having a consulting conversation about him doing a big event. And I said, how many people do you want to put in a room? He said, I don't know, 300, 400. And I said, how big's the list? He said, 1.2 million. Now, my first reaction, before I reminded myself, was, well, this is going to be easy, right? 1.2 million, guy wants 300 in a room, screw it, we can send out an email, right? Email and a postcard pretty much do it, right? I'll charge him 100 grand for the copywriting, I'll be done in an hour, this is phenomenal, right? Then, of course, I calmed myself, and I said, how many of the 1.2 million have bought something from you, say in the past 12 months? Would you like to know the number? 1,680 of them. This is after emailing them like daily. This is 1,680 buyers. I said, well, so first thing you need to know is you don't have 1.6 million anything. You do have 1,680 buyers. Right? You don't have 1,680 customers, because the next question is, how many have bought from you repetitively in the last 12 months? Well, that number's down about 400. I said, unless they love you a lot, we ain't putting 300 people in a room. Not with any amount of work I'm willing to do. All right? So the size of the list is not the issue. The quality of the list and the quality of the relationship with the list is the issue. But a lot of people default to the low-hanging fruit. Right? They would rather spend less and sell to bad customers than spend more to get good customers. This is a short-term money-making proposition that will not build a business. You have to be very careful of it. And I have lived long enough in this business to see many go up and disappear in a relatively short period of time because they sold a lot of stuff to really bad customers that they were only willing to get on the cheap. And then there was nothing left after the sale. Your business needs to be about organizing a highly valuable group of customers, not just selling stuff. We have evolving threats in our business. I have given you a list of them. I'm going to hit them very quickly. They only heighten the need to do certain things that we are going to talk about all night. I'm on your page 17. Number one, the economy for most people is daunting. For many, psychologically, more so than really, but nonetheless. For some, it has been nearly deadly. There is actual shrinkage in niches. The most obvious, mortgage industry. There's like hardly anybody left. I believe it's at 30% of its peak population. They are literally gone. If you want to find a mortgage broker, best place to look is Kohl's. Right? You'll find him you'll find him right next to the real estate agent. All right? There are niches that have actually shrunk. There are others that are shrinking. Retail. 60% of all independently owned shoe stores have disappeared in the last 4 years. They're gone. By the way, you know where they went? Your iPad. If you want to see them, they're in there. Look, it starts with a Z. And there's another one that starts with an A. See both ends of the alphabet. That's where they are. Right in there. Behind a little blue button. But they're not on Main Street, and there's nobody in them there anymore. So you got niches that are shrinking. You have loss of effective ad media and fragmentation of audiences. See, again, when I came up in this business, Success Magazine, the Success buyers read Success Magazine. They were all in one place. It was like a plumbing trade journal. The plumbers read it. We had a magazine for success-oriented people who all read it. Doesn't exist. It's gone. We had magazines for salespeople. They're all gone. And the audience is micro fragmented. Look at TV. Click around. They've recently added some stuff to my cable system. I don't know why. It's all in basic cable. I got Al Jazeera, for example, which is, and I got 412 Asian stations I got to click through. But there's a station for everything. There's not just one food station. There's a food station for good cooks, a food station for bad cooks. There's a food station just for people that want to know how to microwave shit. It's amazing. All right? But understand what that does is it fragments the audience. So you trying to reach them now, and think of all your media fragmentation. So here's what we had to worry about and keep track of. Let's see, we had magazines, direct mail, TV, radio. That's it. Look at all the stuff we got to try and keep track of and make work now. And the list just goes on and on and on, and people are fragmented, and so they're spending 10 seconds over here, 12 seconds over there, a minute over there. So getting people's attention and getting them to move to you much harder. The aging of the best customers. Okay? Where's the money? The money is still in the hands of the old. Okay? Sorry, but that's where it is. Destruction of the value of intellectual property and the democratization of expertise. What does that mean? That means that Billy Bob, who lives in his mom's basement, okay, and has a blog, is the equivalent of the New York Times. That's the democratization of intellectual property. All the barriers of entry removed, that seemed like a good thing until you thought about who would walk through once you removed all the barriers of entry. And so it's a big problem for those of us in the intellectual property business, because there's a whole lot of people. So in the years of the sexual revolution, I saw, Sydney will appreciate this, wherever Sydney is. I'll never forget it. I saw a lady of the evening being interviewed on a television show. And now I don't remember the context. I don't remember whose show it was, right? But her complaint was, and she used a term I can't use. So I'm trying to think of how to clean this up while I'm telling the story. No. But she said, since the sexual revolution started with all the sport, it's a lot harder to get money for this. Sport, you gotta fill it in there for you. That's as far as I can go. So the same thing's happening now to us in the intellectual property business. If everybody's giving it away, it's a lot harder to get money for it. Okay? If you want to see motivational seminars, go to YouTube. They're all there. Napoleon Hill's there, Zig's there, Brian's there, everybody's there for free, right? People can sate themselves, so it's a problem. Tax burdens altering economics, I won't bore you, and kind of related to the fragmentation, the extreme time suck, how your time is all divided out. All that makes our situation all the more challenging. Now, the good news for you, I have some, is that it thins the herd a little, because most people aren't willing to do complicated and sophisticated things in order to make a great deal of money. So if it's not simple and easy, they move on to something else. Right? So if you're willing to do complicated and sophisticated things, then there's still plenty of opportunity in our industry, but we have to get there differently, which gets us to game changers. So I'm on your page 19. So as we go through the whole catalog of them tonight and tomorrow night, you can try and put them in this frame, okay? There's basically only 4 categories of ways that we can affect dynamic change in this business. We can affect it by who we sell to, the market that we sell in. Right? So, for example, that affects price. Right? Always has. It's just true. So, a cosmetic dentist can pay you more for the same piece of information than a general dentist. Why? Because every patient is worth more to him. His case values are higher. So, if we want to change price, we change place. We change who we sell to. If we want to change margins, we change place. We change who we sell to. Okay? Grant, in the suntanning business, selling to suntan salon owners. Well, there are some markets where their prices are really suppressed, and there's other markets where their prices are higher. He might want to concentrate on the markets where their prices are higher. In general seminars, I often show the example, many of you have seen it, of, so I won't tell the story, but of the $200 rubber ball being sold at Disney. And if you've never seen it, the next time you're at Disney, you should pay attention. There's kiosks everywhere, little carts, and they're about half the size of this thing. And they're rubber balls, and they sell them for $200. They bounce really good. But here's the truth about that. You can't sell that ball for $200 any place but Disney. It's impossible. But at Disney, you can sell it for $200 because you're at Disney. So place, who we sell to, that's one of the 4 categories where we may be able to affect some real dynamic change. Price, a related one, is another place where we can affect some real dynamic change. One of my private meetings this afternoon, one of my pieces of advice was, double your price. Okay? So he's selling something, an event, for $797. So great, let's sell it for 2 payments of $797. If we get slightly fewer people, still better off, but actually you won't get fewer. In fact, at a very recent TV test for a client of mine, 2 payments of $39.95 outpulls $39.95. Outpulls it. Now, I know that makes no sense, but it makes a lot of money. That's why we test. Okay? So one of the 4 categories where we can affect dynamic change is price, because with price we can affect margin, and with margin we can affect what we can do in marketing to acquire customers. Next one is the product itself. We can go change what it is that we sell, how we position it, how we present it, okay? And last, process. Those are the 4 categories. Every change I know to make fits into one of those 4, or 2 of those 4 hooked together, or 3 of those 4 hooked together, or all 4 of those hooked together. So on your next page, you should have a master list. And the master list looks like this. And it's where we're going to go for the rest of tonight and tomorrow. And we're going to talk about 14 categories of game changers in the information marketing business. You may want to, depending on how ADD you are, how short-term memory handicapped you are, You might actually want to rip that page out and have it handy as we move along, or you might not, but I'm not going to show it to you again. So if you get lost, you're on your own. So, game changer 1. This is a very interesting one because it is the opposite of what many people who gravitate to information marketing want. A big trend of recent years brought on in necessary response to all of the factors I just quickly talked about has been the advent of the real business. By that I mean the opposite of, I'm going to be in the information marketing business, and I'm going to have a website and a laptop, and I'm going to sit on my backyard deck, and that's the whole business. Okay? It happens. They exist. Not many, not for long, but they exist. The most recent trend, and I will tell you, every one but one of my private clients who pull 7 figures out of info marketing have gravitated to a real business. So let's talk about that. The first difference is whether there are episodic income events or where there is steady, predictable, reliable income. That's a big difference. If they are episodic income events, that is not a business. That is episodic income events. So my client, Guthrie Renker, began doing TV infomercials as episodic income events. All right? The first show they did, which is how I got involved with them, was a show called Think and Grow Rich, hosted by Fran Tarkenton. And coincidentally, Fran lives here in Atlanta, and somebody just came up to me before I came up on stage and handed me Fran's business card and said he was just with them, and Fran wanted me to give him a call while I was here. Haven't talked to Fran in a while. But Fran was the host of Think and Grow Rich, and we sold the Think and Grow Rich product on television in a half-hour show. And it was a successful show. Its numbers were very good for its time. Okay? Then, as that began to wane, and none of us could figure out how to fix it at that point, they began to look for their next hit. They found Tony. He had been a testimonial in Think and Grow Rich, by the way. That's where he came from. And so they did Personal Power. And that, of course, was a hit. And then they were looking for their next hit. And the next one was not a hit, it was a flop. And the one after that was a flop. And then they had a modest hit. And then Mr. Guthrie said, I don't like this business model because this ain't a business. At which point, they did a skincare show. And the skincare show passes the Rich DeVos test, which is it's got to go down the sink. Doesn't matter whether you slather it on, eat it, don't make any difference. It's got to go down the sink so that the jar gets empty and they need another jar, right? See, they don't need another Personal Power. They got one. It's on the bookshelf right over here, looks nice, got dust on it. They don't need another one, okay? They use up the glop, they need more glop, okay? And so today, Guthrie Renker's mostly in the glop business. At any one given time, 5, 6 vertical brands, all fueled by multimedia, including infomercials, all of it continuity. So as you are running out of glop, the next box of glop is automatically arriving, and your credit card is being charged. That's a real business. Okay? Next big difference, the difference between a list and a business. We already talked about that. Last, the difference between media and a business. So when someone says to you, I'm in the internet marketing business, understand they might as well have said to you, I'm in the signs on bus bench marketing business. Okay? Now, unless you own the sign company, you are not in the signs on bus benches marketing business. Signs on bus benches are simply media we use for some business. So is the internet. It's bus benches. Right? It ain't a business unless you own it. Right? So don't confuse media with a business. So let me tell you about real information marketing businesses. And when I say this is what people don't want, I mean it. Because real information marketing businesses kind of look like other real businesses. They have advertising functions, they have marketing functions, they have sale functions. Most of them have some staff. They have outsourced stuff. They have multimedia. They're complicated. Okay? So one of my private clients has been with me for a long time, and I pulled notes because I wanted to get it right. Jay Geyer, and I want to show you his ads. So he markets to the dental industry, and I want to show you his ads just because half the room will like seeing the ads. So this is the front cover of Dental Products Report, by the way, which is a deadly dull magazine about the latest scraper. Okay, so that's the cover, and the ad inside looks like that. And then there's this will frighten people, some of you. This is called a postage-paid reply card. Now, for those of you that don't know what this is, there's a little spot on the back of it, see, that has a little postage, it's got a stamp, and you drop it in a mailbox. That's a big blue thing with a pull thing on it, and it comes back to you in the mail. And by the way, a third of the leads come in that way, which is a useful little tidbit of information. So Jay's business, called the Scheduling Institute, they're based right here in Atlanta, a big training center over at the airport. They have done this year over 2,000 in-office on-site trainings. Right? That's a real business. That's a bunch of people out in the field, contract, not employees, running around with his system doing in-office, on-site trainings, 2,000 of them. We're at what? The start of November, so that's 10 months, 300 days. What is that? 8 a day, 7 a day? It's 7 a day, right? Yeah, okay? They have both staff and doctor training programs. There are classes going on here at the center almost every day of the week that they're sending staff to and doctors are coming to. There's a telephone sales staff. There's a marketing staff. There are coaches. This is a real business. It is a multi-million-dollar business. It's a real business. Gene Kelly, who's here somewhere. Gene, here you are. I'm just going to read, if you don't mind. So Gene is in a hodgepodge of related semi-synergistic businesses. Sort of the trade school business, sort of the correspondence school business. He sells courses on gunsmithing, how to do dangerous things in your garage for fun and profit. Okay? On a very positive note, my business is up 35% gross over last year, which it was up 25% last year, year over year, and up the same percentage the year before that. So we have had this is a current letter, by the way, for those we have had 3 solid years of growth, thanks to implementing the techniques I've learned from you. It pays to run the race for the long term, having a real business. Okay? We're about to enter the next stage of growth for my schools, yada, 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 yada. So the really successful info marketers who have stability, not just income, are running real businesses. Now, our real businesses have much higher margin than a lot of other real businesses, but they're run like real businesses. Related, same Jay Geyer story, Game Changer 2. This is pretty big. Being willing to sell them what they really want. So Chauncey Hutter, who I mentioned to you, tax business. So Chauncey, this is some years ago now. I'm speaking at his boot camp. And for the past year or so, he's had declining results in like this particular year and everything he's doing. His front end's going down, conversions are going down, the seminar attendance was down, every number was trending bad in a booming economy. Okay? And I couldn't figure it out based on what he was telling me. At the boot camp, I got it. So at the boot camp, he's there speaking about advertising and marketing and selling. I'm there as the big star speaking about marketing. There's 3 or 4 other great speakers about marketing. And everybody who was there, smallest attendance in several years, they could have cared less about anything I had to say. You know who they wanted to talk to? They wanted to talk to the operations manager from his offices to try and figure out how they were processing a return in 9 minutes instead of 11 minutes, because they didn't have a marketing problem. They had customers coming out of their ears. They had a processing problem. They couldn't handle the flow of all the customers that were lined up outside their doors, and therefore they didn't want to buy marketing. They didn't want to hear about marketing. And I turned to Chauncey at the back of the room and said, if you want to fix that front end, you got to go home and you got to remake it into an operations system. You got to be in the management and operations business for a while. You can't be in the marketing business because they don't want to buy marketing. That's not the solution they need. So often, we get stuck on selling what we got in the wagon exactly the way it was when we loaded it in the wagon, regardless of conditions on the ground. But ultimately, people will only buy what they really want. Okay? So Jay Geyer's business, he discovered what the dentists really want. Well, let me tell you what they don't want first. They don't want to fix themselves. By the way, most people don't. That's why selling the World Book Encyclopedia to adults for their own use would have been a losing proposition. See, if you said, you're kind of a dummy, and it would be good if you got smarter, buy this set of books. Nah. Guy says, you want me to look at all those books? You know, your kid's kind of a dummy. And if you don't get the kid fixed, he's not going to get into college, and he's going to be living with you until he's 26. Now, by the way, that's perfectly acceptable, but in the days they were selling World Book, that was a terrifying prospect, right? Guy says, give me the books. Jay's business is exactly the same way. We're not going to fix the dentist, we're going to fix your staff. And you don't have to do it, you just give them to us. You give them to us, send them to us in a tube, we'll send them back to you, all fixed. We'll send a person in a tube. They'll fix them right on the spot, fix them. Okay? We'll fix them for you. Okay? That people want. And it stretches the top of the pyramid because they'll pay more for that. He has a $100,000 coaching program at the top of his pyramid, and in the last 2 meetings that it was presented, the close rate was over 65% in every one of the rooms. $100,000 a doc. That's pretty good because he has figured out how to sell them what they really want. One of the biggest trends in the info marketing business in recent years has been done-for-them services. Why? Because that's what they want. They don't want to listen to this 21 times to learn it. They want something done for them. So you can either get in sync with what they want. So I have a client, we're going to talk about it a little later. We're very successful in the financial services industry right now, in part selling a coaching program. But really, the coaching program is being sold on the basis that it's the portal, it's the only way you can get access to exclusive, made-for-you, done-for-you systems, one a month. We're in the done-for-you system-a-month business. That's what we're in. Now, we call it coaching. That ain't what they're buying. They don't want to be coached. They want this thing. Oh, boy, you got another thing for me. I got another thing for you. Okay? And here's all the work you got to do. You put your credit card number here again, and you sign here. That's all you got to do. Oh, great. Okay? And by the way, don't misunderstand, I'm not necessarily faulting them because they want it for the right reason. They're in the top of the pyramid. They're seven-figure income people. Their time is incredibly valuable. And the place it's most valuable is sitting across the desk from somebody who could give them money. That's where their time is most valuable. So they don't want to be in a seminar room. They don't want to listen to this 21 times. They don't want to learn how to write copy. No. It's cheaper for them to write a nice fat check, to have it done for them. So really, the training part of all that is just to have them understand what it is that they're buying. That's the deal. All right? So one way or another, selling people what they really want instead of what you got to sell or what you want to sell, this is a thought process you have to engage in. As a matter of fact, figuring out what your market actually wants should be the precursor to what you build. And still a lot of people in our industry do it the opposite way. They have a subject, and then they want to create stuff about that subject, and then they want to sell it. The correct process is, who wants to buy something? What do they want to buy? How can I make it and fulfill it in a way that does not violate my deal breaker rules about how I want to live? Because you should have deal breaker rules about how you want to live. This is not in conflict. You can have a short list, not a long list, but you can have a short list of how you want your business to fit into your life, what you will and won't do, and you can still manage to sell people what they want within that framework. These are not ideas in conflict. These are ideas that can be made to work in common. Okay. We are on Game Changer 3. The ability and willingness to invest a lot more in new customer acquisition. So here's the deal. Sort of a summary of some things I said before about the current state of the market. Pretty much everybody's dealing with bigger haystacks with fewer needles. All right? There's fewer people of value in every haystack. That means we got to spend more to get them. All right? So the costs of customer acquisition in this industry has in most businesses, by the way, have gone down if you don't care about quality. So if you don't care about the quality of what you catch, there's a lot of media options that cost little or nothing, and so you can actually bring your customer acquisition costs down. Now, if you really care about quality, then the exact opposite is true. The costs of customer acquisition have gone up, they're going up, and they're going to go up again. So if you want to build a strong quality business, you got to be prepared to spend a lot more on new customer acquisition. Where does power come from in the market? Power comes from being able to outspend everybody else. And the more clutter there is, the truer that is. So if you can spend a lot more to get a new customer than everybody else can spend, you can stand out in the most cluttered field. So Mr. Geyer has the front cover and a 2-page ad in Dental Profits. None of his competitors have 3 pages. Why? Because he's engineered his economics so he can pay a lot more to play. And that's not the only place he's playing. So you can stand out from the clutter. You could even drive competitors either insane or out of business if you are willing to spend a lot more than they are able and willing to spend. Most importantly, you have more options. The more you're able and willing to spend, the more things you can do, the more media you can use, the more media you can integrate, the more you can buy speed. So power in the marketplace is directly related to one number and one number only. It's the most critical number in all of the numbers in info marketing, and that is, what's the maximum you can and will spend to acquire a customer? As soon as a client answers that question for me, I begin to separate what we can do from what we can't do. And the smaller their answer, the bigger the list of things we can't do, the shorter the list of things we can do. The difference between superpower and impotence is the answer to that question: what's the most you can and will spend to acquire a customer? Next, how do you escape the internet? You say, well, I don't want to escape the internet. Well, I'm telling you, you do. I'm not telling you you want to leave it totally. I'm not even telling you you don't want to get new customers there. Every single private client I work with does new customer acquisition with online media. So I'm not opposed. However, if the only new customer acquisition you can or will do is online, you are not smart. For a whole host of reasons we are not going to spend an entire evening talking about. You'll either take my word for it or not, but very briefly, a couple of them. One, there's a lot of people you will not get that way. Okay? You just aren't going to get them that way. They are only going to go so far, and they're not going to go far enough purely through that media. Yep, you can sell a lot of stuff with a webinar, but there are some people, very good customers, who are not going to buy from you via webinar, period. I don't care how many webinars you drive them to. I don't care how good the webinar is. Not going to happen. All right? So you leave a bunch of good customers that you can't get if you can't also use offline media. The other most important thing about offline media is you can avoid a lot of clutter. As a matter of fact, one of the big overall trends in direct marketing of 2011 has been a general lift in response rates from direct mail because there's less mail in the mailbox. There's more mail in the email box. Okay? So for a whole host of reasons, you do not want to be trapped in the internet any more than you want to be trapped in offline media and be totally ignorant about or totally negligent in using online media. In fact, if you can, you want to use broadcast. If you can, you want to use human media. You want to have somebody out doing road shows. You want to have television. You want to be able to use every media you can use if for no other reason than you are not vulnerable to sudden disruption of your business. So I have a prediction. I am not psychic like Dave. Okay? I happen to know how one of those tricks is done. He has fully equipped me to do the trick. I am incapable of doing the trick. And if I told you how it was done, every single person in this room could do the trick. I can't do it. I am all thumbs. I give it away. I'm no good. But I do have a prediction that you don't have to be psychic. You only have to have a sense of history and a sense of economics to be able to do. My prediction is this. Sooner, not later, commercial users of email will pay a tax on every single one they send. Mm-hmm. It is unavoidable. Mm-hmm. It's the only possible way to maintain the United States postal system, and we cannot function without the United States postal system. There are numbnuts on TV talking about, well, why don't we just get rid of it? After all, nobody needs to send mail anymore. You do all your banking on your smartphone, and you can treat people. Right? You want to see 50% unemployment, you just eliminate mail. Because there's untold numbers of businesses who their sales will be 20% of what they are now if they can't use mail. So that ain't going away, but it's going to have to be subsidized because it's a loser. And nobody's going to eliminate the pensions, and so it has to be subsidized by the thing people are using, which is email. So if you think you're going to get away without paying a penny or 2 pennies or 3 pennies to send every single one of them, and if you think that doesn't change the mass email marketing business, it changes everything. My second related prediction is you're going to pay property taxes on websites by the amount of acreage you got. All right? Don't think they ain't coming. All right? So you leave yourselves vulnerable. I had a client who was making $1 million a month with broadcast fax. And for 2 years, I said to him, every time I talked to him, because that's all he was doing, you ought not be dependent on broadcast fax. This is not a good idea. Right? We should be sending mail. You should be on radio. Yeah, but all that costs a lot more than this. Yeah, but this is going to be real costly when you can't do it. And in a 30-day period of time, you couldn't do it. Okay? A lot of people don't know TV infomercials used to be illegal. That goes way back. Okay? They didn't exist. You couldn't buy 30 minutes of time. The most you could buy is 2 minutes until Reagan deregulated the airwaves. So you leave yourself vulnerable. Okay? So what you need in this business is what I call a bridge the gap mentality. So here's how the process works when I'm working with a client and we are beginning to use media they have not used before. We do our best, quote, quote, creative, meaning product, offer, story, message, everything that we're going to put out there via that media. We create the best test that we can within the parameters of what the client will do and what the client will invest and so forth. And we get to a point where we know what it costs to acquire a customer that way. And we have a number. Right? Now, in many cases, this is a bad number. If you define bad number as a scary number, meaning you look at the number and you go, oh no, this is a scary number. There is no way we could afford to pay this much to acquire a customer. Now, it is at this point that the men and the women separate from the boys and the girls, that the tough separate from the weak and the smart separate from the dumb. And here's how they separate. The weak and the wimps and the stupid say, this is a really scary number. Let's not do this anymore. The smart and the strong say, this is a really scary number. There's a big gap between the number I want and this number. Now let's figure out how to bridge the gap. Because if we got a really scary number, everybody else in our category who tries this gets a really scary number too, and they're all weak and dumb, and they all walk away from it. So if we can crack this code, we, for some perhaps significant period of time, will be able to do something no one else can do. And we will be able to acquire customers no one else can acquire. And we will be able to grow our business faster and bigger than anybody else can grow this particular type of business. And so they will go to work to crack the code, to build the bridge, to bridge the gap to a manageable number. Sometimes the bridge can't be built. Sometimes the number is so bad that everybody agrees we'll never build that bridge. In which case you want to give it the swift sword and you want to walk away. But that's got to be a really, really, really bad number. I've built bridges over $1,000 gaps. Now, you don't build them with one thing. You usually build them with 10 things, but you can build them. And when you do, you have power in the marketplace. So we come to this business with a bridge the gap mentality. I want to use every possible media I can. And by the way, I damn sure want to be able to use direct mail. There's too many advantages not to use it. So whatever that gap is, now we got to go to work on how do we bridge the gap. So for example, with a skincare client, not an information marketing client, selling a skincare system. The gap in 3 different kinds of media is huge. We bridged the gap, in one case, by doing 22 different things. Right? Some having to do with refund, to reduce the refund. Some having to do with multiple upsells. Some having to do with bounce backs in the box. Some having to do with getting other people to buy the leads. Some with getting somebody to pay to be sent along with the box that doesn't get in our way. 22 different things to bridge the gap. They can now mail 500,000 pieces of mail every single month that they couldn't mail before because we bridged the gap. Right? The secret of those who get rich and dominate markets with media is as follows. The majority try to spend as little as possible, thus restricting themselves to few media options. That's what they try and do. How can we get a customer for the least amount of money humanly possible? It's what they're all trying to figure out. So what everybody does to me with direct mail, well, what happens if we printed it in 4-point type instead of 8-point type, and we could use half as many pages? And then we could save 3 cents on every one we put in the mail. What happens if we didn't mail it? What if we just dropped it out of an airplane and we skipped the postage price? What happens if we shoot the video with the camera in our phone with a flashlight in a bad environment with no prompter and no preparation to save the cost of production? What if we do that? Right? So everybody's trying to figure out how to do it as cheaply as they possibly can. The few at the top do the opposite. They do everything they can to be able to spend more and as much as possible to acquire customers. And with this approach, they gain power. Now, to be able to do the latter, every single lead and every single customer has to be monetized to the fullest extent they possibly can. If you got even tiny holes in your bucket, you probably are not going to be able to do this. But the secret is to be able to spend more, not to strive to spend less, which gets us to game changer 4, which is plugging the holes in the bucket. Much more aggressively plugging the holes in the bucket. I should tell you that this ebbs and flows. So this ain't my first recession. And so I have seen times, and most recently, the run up to about mid-2008, when a whole lot of info marketers were making so much money. Money was running uphill. I mean, it was just running uphill. That they knew they had lots of holes in the bucket and they didn't care. Right? Some of them had more holes than they had buckets. Didn't make any difference. There was still plenty of money. And you couldn't get anybody to want to close holes in the bucket. Right? Now, different story. And I've seen it come and go before. So right now, a whole lot of info marketers who didn't care about these holes a few years ago now really, really care. And consequently, they've gotten good at it because they care. So let's talk about some of the holes. Capture. You know there are people who don't capture their leads? A lot of them. A lot of them. There are trade shows that don't capture names. Consumer shows don't capture names. There's people that exhibit at shows that they got a thing you enter if you want to. They ask to swipe your business, your thing, the little plastic card they give you, but they don't have a way to capture every name. For the 9 years that I was on the success events, the great big events I spoke at, big frustration for me is nothing was done to capture all the attendees' names, only the ticket buyer. So if Frankie called up and bought 12 tickets and is bringing 12 people with him, the only contact information we got is Frankie's. So on average, 25,000 people in the arena, we got 8,000 names. But if Frankie brought a bunch of salespeople from his car dealership, Some of those salespeople go be somewhere else in 3 months, and we don't know who they are or where they went. But we paid to get them. Okay? People do websites, don't force capture. Why not? So, capture of leads. Then failures with leads. Disorganized follow-up, insufficient follow-up, really dull, boring, and uncreative follow-up. Not changing the offer, not changing the price, not changing the payment terms. And ultimately, when someone has said no to your solution umpteen times, it doesn't mean they don't want a solution. They just don't like the one you're putting in front of them. They raised their hand in the first place for a reason. So that means at some point you want to either sell them a different solution or you want to sell them to somebody else who can sell them a different solution. But just because they're saying no to yours, they raised their hand in the first place. Right? So even in the glop business, so in the acne business at Guthrie Renker, where we sell Proactive, there's some people who just won't use the glop, but they'll take a pill. So we got a pill. They'll take a pill. As a matter of fact, they'll take a whole packet full of pills, but they won't use glop. Okay? So intelligence says at some point, when they've said no to glop umpteen times, it's time to sell them pills. And if we're not going to sell them pills, let's sell them to somebody who will sell them pills and get paid backwards. But one way or another, let's offer them a different solution. After they have made it clear they wanted a solution, they just don't want our solution. That's creative follow-up. Most people do very uncreative follow-up. Failure to monetize unconverted leads. So I have a lot of clients that are selling fairly expensive things as the initial transaction. And so after much nagging over a period of years, I have finally got 2 of them to create a catalog online of low-priced, single-topic, specific things. Mm-hmm. And at some point, to let the people who will not buy that thing for $1,000 or $2,000 or $900 go through that door and see stuff that they can buy for $49, $99, $149, and they can pick whichever one profoundly interests them. Right? So the way to think about that is, let's say we got a big weight loss system. Everything you need in a box to lose weight. So we got an exercise Dumafludgy, and we got workout DVDs, and we got food to eat, we got pills, we got everything. One big system. And it's $1,000. Okay? At some point, when Barbara has refused to buy it, if we let her go through another door and there's a $49 how to lose 1 dress size within 2 weeks before your class reunion, and she has a class reunion coming up, she'll buy that. Now we've got her in motion. Now we're monetizing an unconverted lead. Now, since most people have a lot more unconverted leads than they have converted leads, it's kind of unavoidable, isn't it? No matter how good you are. And if you can spend a lot more, and so you're generating a lot more leads, you're going to have even more unconverted leads. Guess what happened to one of these clients last year? You don't have to guess, I'm going to tell you. The net from the monetization of his unconverted leads through a catalog of variable priced, single purpose, small products now matched the net from the original business. The unconverted leads are now worth as much as the converted leads. Now, close that loop, guess what I just did? He can spend twice as much to get leads because I just doubled their value. So you got to find ways to monetize your unconverted leads. Immediate retention refund management. Some people, this is an issue, some people it isn't. But if it is an issue, so many of the things we sell, the buyer, well, a lot of bad things happen after we make a sale. So first of all, sometimes there's a delay in delivery. If there's a delay in delivery, that's a bad thing. Because when you bought it, when did you want it? Yeah, when you bought it. That's why you bought it. If you didn't want it till 2 weeks from now, you wouldn't have bought it. You'd buy it 2 weeks from now, right? So when Charlie got all excited and bought it, he wanted it. And now, every moment he doesn't have it, his desire is waning. Right? So by the time it arrives, his desire went from way up here to way down there. It's a refund problem. Okay? Second bad thing that happens is people try and talk him out of what he just bought if they find out he bought it, sometimes before it even gets there. So Charlie buys down in the basement on his computer, in between other things down in the basement on his computer. He actually buys something. Now, the people that laughed at that so are suspect. If you're a woman and you're sitting next to your husband and like he didn't get it at all, good news. So he bought something. Now he runs upstairs and tells his spouse the good news about the cool thing he just bought. And she now tells him the 512 reasons why he's a moron for having bought that. And you haven't even got it there yet, right? Not good. So lots of bad things happen, okay, between the time they buy and the time they get or start to use what it is that we sell them. So therefore, in many cases, we need immediate retention, refund response, okay? Like quick, and depending on how long the delay, a lot of it. We also, by the way, need to speed up delivery. In many cases, you can reduce refunds substantially and have plus money just by switching to FedEx and getting the thing there overnight. Okay? Then we need conversion and commitment. So the first time somebody buys something from us, they are at best a buyer, and they are at worst a good prospect. But they are not yet committed to us. They don't know if they like what they bought. They don't know how they're going to be treated. They don't know if they're going to like us. That's all going to happen after the fact. All right? So there's a conversion process. Now that word's important, and it's a homework assignment. So conversion is it's a theological term. It's a religious term. So it has its roots in religions and in cults. Okay? And even the dictionary definition, don't look it up on your little doohickey now. Make a note, look it up when you get up to the room. Even the dictionary definition of conversion is instructive. But you should really go further and do a little homework about what conversion is all about. Right? And so conversion gets us to a committed relationship. This person has now bought into what it is that we sold them, what it is we're about, and who we are on a philosophical level. They haven't just bought a thing. We need to get to that deliberately and as quickly as we can, because that's how we create value in our customer. So there's acquisition, there's conversion, and there's development. Most info marketing businesses have trigger points that dramatically improve retention and value of a customer. You will have to figure out what yours are. I can tell you what ours are. So I'll tell you what the Glazer Kennedy ones are. One is ascension. Okay? So how many of you in here are Diamond members? Raise your hands nice and proud. You learn more by looking around than you do looking at me. Okay? All right? How many are not Diamond members? All right? So what does that work out to? I got lights in my eyes. Folks, what was that, about half and half? Half and half, huh? Okay? What is wrong with the second half? What is wrong with you people? Okay, now, here's what you ought to know about that. A Diamond member, I'm not going to give you the multiple, but by a significant multiple, they are more likely to be here 3 years from now than a Gold member. It is a multiple likelihood. All right? So, simply by getting them from Gold to Diamond, we increase, not in the money differential, in the longevity, we increase their value dramatically. That's one trigger point. Okay? Another one is this, right here. As soon as we get somebody to either an info summit or a super conference, their likelihood of longevity goes up exponentially. If they attend 2 in a row, the odds of them being a lifer are 1 out of 4. It's real important for us. Okay? So there's others. I won't give them all to you. It's about 5, okay, that are predictive of value, that control value. Okay? So we want to work on those things. We want to know what they are, and we want to work on those things. Okay? Upsells. So the second sale to a first-time buyer, okay, is important to us economically because it allows us to spend more on acquisition. It helps us bridge a gap. It allows us to pay the tele-rep, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? It also helps with commitment because if somebody makes a second purchase, they are more committed than if they made a first purchase. So when should we get them to make the second purchase? Well, as quickly as is humanly possible because we want commitment. So that's why you see things like thank you pages and offers that immediately appear on thank you pages. That's why if you call in to order something on the phone, there's an upsell, or 2 upsells, or 3 upsells, or upsells until you won't listen to the next upsell offer. All right? Why is that there? Economic reasons, but also commitment reasons. So with a big direct marketing client, where the orders are taken on the phone, here's a statistic that will interest you. The refund rate from those who buy an upsell, who buy the first product and agree to an upsell, is 1/3 of the refund rate of a customer who buys only the first product and says no to the upsells. That's big. That means we spend a lot of time working on the upsells. Because even if we didn't make any money on the upsell, we're making money by them not refunding what it is that they bought. So upsells have to do with commitment, not just with economics. Ongoing retention. So in most info marketing businesses, there is the early dropout factor. Either they return the thing they bought, or they drop out of the continuity that we put them in. So they cancel. Happens early. Okay? It happens the next hour, the next day, the next week, within a month, whatever. It's one issue. Then there's the ongoing retention issue, okay? Because longevity equals profit. Okay? So the longer we keep somebody with us, the more valuable they are to us. True in just about every info marketing business. Okay? So you need ongoing retention strategies, preempting loss at spikes. If you're in the continuity business in any way, shape, or form, and you pay attention, sooner, not later, after you've run enough numbers, you should be able to spot spike points at which people drop out. With chiropractors, for example, it's between April 1st and April 14th. There's a spike point in everybody's continuity program of dropouts. There's also a spike in refunds. You know why? Tax time. Yeah. and they're looking around scrounging for money. There's 2 times you get stuff back from chiropractors, tax time and right before Christmas. In it comes. They're scrounging around on the shelf for something they can turn into money. Okay? So those spike points are seasonal. Other spike points may have to do with the flow of your information. It may have to do with whatever. But when you identify a spike point, what you want to do is get in front of it with some attempt to stop it. Because generally, so if the spike point is April, or if the spike point is 4 months after they've been with you, if you get them past that, there's another big period of time before there's another big spike. So getting them past that doesn't just buy you 1 more month, it buys you 7 more months. And you have to know that. Why? Why do you have to know how many months it buys you if you get them over that hump? Oh, who said it? Yes, yes. Because that tells you how much you're willing to spend to preempt the dropout. I got to know how much money I'm buying to know how much I'm willing to spend. How good of a gift can I send them? Can I send them 2 gifts? Can I use FedEx? Can I have somebody call them? What can I afford to do? Well, if I'm buying 7 months at $100 a month, that's $700. What will you spend to get $700? If I'm only buying 2 months, I'm getting $200. What can you spend to get to it? So you need to know that number in order to make smart decisions about what you'll do, right? Keeping the advanced customer over time. Yeah, so this will be instructive, and you'll learn more by looking around at everybody than looking at me. And if this has already been done in my absence, I apologize, but it's still instructive. Okay? So everybody who's been a member for 5 years or longer, stand up. Everybody stand up who's 5 years or longer. 7 years. 10? 15? What's your number? 20. Okay? Now, there was a whole bunch in that 5 to 7 range, right? A whole bunch. Okay? That doesn't happen by accident. I should tell you, most info marketers, their number's not as good. Okay? Doesn't happen by accident. Okay? So you have to think about 20 years. What's going to keep them? What's going to keep them coming back? 15 years. What's going to keep them? What's going to keep them back, coming back? Hint. Okay? The greater the longevity, the less you can keep them with information. He can teach this stuff. Okay? So it's other things. But we have to make sure we do things for the advanced customer if we're going to keep them. Last, measurement. So I gave you 2 important numbers now. I gave you the most important number, and I just revealed a second important number to you. Numbers are real important. Money math is really important. Okay? If you aren't measuring your effectiveness in every aspect of your business, in every hole in the bucket you're plugging, you will not get improvement. So if we don't know what an unconverted lead, a stubborn unconverted lead that refuses to convert at the point that you give up on them, okay, if we don't know what that ratio is now and what they're worth to you, then we don't know if we're improving when we do 18 things in order to monetize them. So we have to have good measurement. You should know most people don't have good measurement. Most people do not have good numbers. Typically, in a one-on-one consulting day, I can stump just about anybody with the first 5 questions. I don't know that number. I guess I should, shouldn't I? Yeah, you should. You know? Most marketing businesses, and this is a marketing business, are behavioral psych and math. That's what they are. All right? And one is no less or more important than the other. They're behavioral psych and they're math. By the way, a good key to monetizing leads to a system a help for a lot of people is a single funnel system. Okay? So no matter where they come from, they all go through the same process. I even teach this at the local level to local business people. If you have them as your customers, you should teach them the same thing. So I don't care if you're at a cocktail party and somebody gives you a business card, you should go back to the office and they should go through the same funnel as if they responded to your banner ad and found their way to your website. Everybody should go through the same process. It's either the best process you can build or it isn't. If it's the best process you can build, why shouldn't everybody go through it? If it's not the best process you can build, why don't you go build a better process? Okay? So it's either one that you know is so damn good that you want everybody to go through it, or you ought to be working on fixing the process. That thing's not in your book, by the way. Don't get excited. So we're going to do Game Changer 5 before the evening ends, because it really is related. So Game Changer 5 is immediate fast ascension. So in most info businesses, again, ascension is a trigger of commitment and therefore of longevity. So we want to ascend somebody as quickly as we possibly can. There's a famous, how many of you here know the name Ben Suarez? Raise your hands. Good students of direct response, very good. So some years ago, for those of you who don't know, the current thing you would see is the Amish heater campaign. Okay, that's from Ben's company. However, Ben's a very old dog like me, and so there's many, many previous Ben Suarez campaigns. But the Amish heater campaign is a very good campaign. You understand the Amish, it's just the frame that's Amish. Yeah. As a matter of fact, they can't use the heaters because they're electric, which is an irony in and of itself. So Ben, some years ago, sold a particular fitness device. It kind of looked like a Nordic track. You know what a Nordic track is? So you sort of like sat down and skied in this thing. And they sold it on TV, and they sold it by direct mail. And I don't remember the price point now. It's left me. But whatever, let's say the price point was $299 for the sake of conversation. The very first thing they did before they shipped the thing is they called the customer, and they said, we're about to ship your whatever they called this thing. However, we have a gold edition of this thing. And the gold edition is made with super duper parts, and it's got an extra adjustable flammable, and it's got this and it's got that. And you can have the gold edition of the thing for just 2 payments of $299. They went back and made a second sale before they even shipped the first item and ascended them to the higher priced item. So how soon do we want to start doing ascension? As quickly as we possibly can. And by the way, you can often ascend big. Okay? I have a client who the initial transaction is $39, and the immediate ascension is to $3,900, and the ascension within 30 days is to $39,000. So you can move them pretty quick if you choose to. Segmentation for maximum monetization. So here's the biggest thing about maximum monetization that I can tell you. Your customers are different. Okay? Within whatever customer grouping you have, you got subsets of that population with different interests, different desires, different pains, different levels of experience, and most important, different buying power. Okay? So for example, in the restaurant industry, where I had a client for a number of years, Rory Fatt, who I worked with intimately, marketing to the restaurant industry. Same marketing system on the front end to all of them. But let's think about the restaurant industry for a second. You have single unit operators. You have multiple unit operators. Who has more money to spend? Well, the multiple unit operator, of course. Okay? So, several years ago, I did a lot of work for a client in the healthcare industry. And I mentioned to somebody in a meeting today, a private meeting today, that it was a $2 million contract. They paid me $1 million. There was $1 million on the back end. And when I said the $1 million, he like gasped, right? And I said, but they got 1,100 units. It's only $1,000 a unit. Mm-hmm. We sold that thing for $2,000. $1,000 a unit's not that big a deal. $1 million is a big deal, but $1,000 a unit's no big deal, right? So multiple unit operators are different than single unit operators. Then we have pizza joints and we have high-end steakhouses. Who has more money to spend? Don't be sure. Wait, think. Wait, think. Think. Okay. Think. Okay. The answer is it depends. Okay. But there's a lot of money in pizza. But if you think about your population now and you begin to slice and dice it, there are segments of whatever your customer population is that by the nature of who they are have more money or less money to spend. For that reason alone, we ought to segment them and talk to them differently. Then there's their interests and their desires and where they came from and all of that. So if you are going to achieve maximum monetization, you are not going to do one-size-fits-all offers, one-size-fits-all messages, one-size-fits-all propositions, or one-size-fits-all pricing. You're not going to do it because you will not get to maximum monetization that way. You, in fact, will be at minimum monetization. Right? Vertical penetration depth, horizontal penetration breadth. Okay? So what does that mean? That means that there's two ways to monetize customers, and in many cases you can use both. So vertical penetration depth is you reveal to me that you are really interested in time management and productivity because you buy this thing about time management and productivity. Now I have an entire ascension ladder, an entire what's next, totally about time management and productivity. That's vertical. That's going in depth in one thing and selling you another thing and another thing and another thing, most likely each one more expensive and more elaborate and more valuable and more useful than the last. Horizontal is getting you to be interested in a lot of other things. Mm-hmm. In most cases, you can and you should do both. You should know that the guru factor that we talked about at the very beginning of the evening, it enables you to do both. Because here's a real oddity about customers in the information marketing industry. I always hesitate to talk about this, but so this doesn't apply to any of you. It just applies to all your customers, okay? Once somebody has sort of created a trust relationship with a guru about item B in life, whatever item B is, in very short order, they want that guru that they have a trust relationship with to also be a guru about items C, D, E, F, and G. It doesn't really matter to them whether the person is qualified at all to be a guru about those other items. They still want them to be. And that's why horizontal movement is possible. Okay? Now, on the surface, it's somewhat silly. Okay? So I used to get it a lot. Then for a period of time, I don't get it. But now, just the other day, actually yesterday, so somebody says to me, comes up to me, and they want to talk to me. Here's the question they want to talk to me about. They want to talk to me about repairing and improving their marriage. You feel free to laugh, okay? And by the way, this is a very smart person. This is a very good member of ours and a very smart person. But I am the last guy, right? Well, I'm not the last guy. Charlie Sheen's probably the last, but I'm close to the last guy that you want to have that conversation with. I haven't the faintest idea. I don't know why I'm married at the moment. I don't know why I wasn't married. I don't know anything about that. Nothing. It is a complete mystery to me. Furthermore, between you and I do not have enough ambition about the whole thing to go figure it out. Okay? Now, I don't necessarily want that repeated outside of this room. Already been through that, a couple of times. Why would you ask me this? Well, it's because of what I just told you. Because I am a very effective, respected, and admired guru to this person about items B, C, and D, and they want me to be a guru about E, F, and G, and because they want it, they are willing to suspend logic, rational thought, facts, empirical data, everything to get what it is that they want. Okay? Now that allows you, now, I do not suggest you commit fraud, which is what would happen if, like, I put out a relationship product, okay? That would be fraud, okay? But what I am suggesting is short of fraud, and there's lots of ways to create information that does not necessarily have to be all from you. You can create a team. You can go find experts to partner with. You can publish other people, okay? But you can have horizontal movement in your business, and you can monetize your customers with horizontal as well as vertical.